Last year, I was getting my beard trimmed by my usual barbers, and one of them, a young Muslim man, was reading the Stoics. He was reading books about how to live your life. And it seems to be that many people who are struggling with uh, how life should be put together in our culture, who are looking for meaning and purpose, have started to read books like the Stoics and then Jordan Peterson to find out how to shape their lives in what is a very chaotic world. It's one of the things we're seeing when people are coming to our churches, that young people in particular, but many people in general, are saying, how do you live your life? And what we would hope to do in our churches, if people come to our churches, we'd be able to give them some sort of framework for what that looks like. Which tells us that when people are coming to us and they're looking for order in their lives, they're asking the question, what does Christianity say about this? You would hope that if they came to our churches and they sat and listened to one of our sermons and they watched what we did on any given Sunday, they would start to form an idea about what we thought life would look like. That does raise questions about what we do in church. It does raise questions about the foundation of the order that we say life should be lived as. So when people come to our church and they're looking for meaning and purpose, or they're looking for something more, something transcendent, you would hope that our church services reflect that. So when people do come to our churches, we want to make sure that how we use the Bible and that we use the Bible, well, I guess that we use it should go without saying in our evangelical tradition, but how we use the Bible and how we explain what the Bible is about will somehow answer some of those questions. People who are a long way from God, who are coming to our churches, have no assumptions or frameworks about what Christianity is actually about. They're looking for something, they're not quite sure what it is. I notice this in middle class churches that it's very easy to drop into, well, the Lord will add his understanding to his word as we preach it this morning. No, that's our job as pastors and leaders, is to add the understanding. People have gone down all sorts of rabbit holes of spirituality. They've looked at YouTube videos about what the world is supposed to be like, what is wrong with the world. The point of the Bible, as we bring people to Jesus, is to show that Jesus explains what's wrong with the world, what's wrong with the human heart, and the church, as it grows in the New Testament, starts to look like something. It is the fulfillment of everything in the Old Testament of what God's people were meant to look like. So, in many senses, the ethical imperatives of the New Testament have to be explained in full to people that have no framework about what Christianity is about. We can't assume that anymore. The discipleship program, the way we actually explain the scriptures to people who come to our churches, is going to have to be more granular. Now, let me give you an example. A few decades ago now, a couple of young people became Christian at a university campus setting that someone was leading a Bible study in, and they ended up at church. And they're reading through the scriptures, and they read, as they're opening up the New Testament, do not be drunk with wine, but be filled with the Spirit. And a couple of them looked at each other and said, hey, this is telling us that we shouldn't get drunk. Maybe we shouldn't get drunk. Now, they had no framework for why that was the case. But when they came to the scriptures, they saw that it was indeed so, that they should not. And because the Spirit of God had convicted them and enlivened them, they put drunkenness aside. But there was no assumption to them, culturally, that drunkenness was wrong. They didn't have a Christian hangover, so to speak, that would tell them that a boozy hangover was wrong. They had to be taught it. And that's refreshing in some senses because it's a bit like the gospel coming into the pagan world, which had no Christian framework either. So let's have a confidence that as we come to the scriptures and as we unpack it, here's what we should do. We should tell people what it actually means to do to live their lives. And we may need to lean into that a bit more as we preach. Our application may need to be thicker. It may need to be more directed. And as we'll look at in the next video, we may need to carve out space in our week for people who are coming to our churches who have zero framework and an ethical framework themselves that is a long way from Scripture. So we want to be confident that Scripture can change them, but then we want to be able and competent to use Scripture to enable that change by the power of the Spirit to happen in people's lives. So the first thing I think, when people come, they want to see what the Bible is actually going to be able to do in their lives. Yes, it's pragmatic, but it's also principle. Jesus can change people's lives, and he does it through his word by the power of the Spirit. Let's be ready for the kind of people coming in who have no framework of what the Bible actually says to us and how we should live our lives.